Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable my supervisor, Ma'am Gita, Mutiara Hati, and Ma'am Indah Damayanti. The Honorable my examiner, Sir Mulyadi, and Ma'am Kasmaini. Today, I would like to present my undergraduate thesis about the autonomy level of EESP students in University of Bengkulu. Before I start to present my undergraduate thesis today, let me introduce myself. My name is Fitri Ade Andriani. I am a student of English Education Study Program, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, University of Bengkulu. I divided my topic today into 5 points. First, introduction. Second, literature review. Third, methodology. Fourth, result and discussion. And the last is conclusion and suggestion. First, introduction. Background. Students who are independent of knowledge have good abilities. They have a sense of curiosity that they must fulfill in themselves. It makes students want to find out what they don't know. Autonomous learners are students who learn with a great sense of responsibility to themselves. Based on Dikisa 1995, explains autonomous learning is now not only to allow students to cater the learning content and speed to their own needs, but also to motivate learning and to lead them to greater language learning. It means that an autonomous learner more quickly gets knowledge about learning because the student has a desire to learn on his own. Then, Dickinson 1995 characterized autonomous learner as those who have the capacity for being active and independent in the learning process. It means that autonomous learners can be seen from his or her activity during the learning process. The students who are active students in the class, it means that they have their responsibility to learning process. In this research, that the researcher analyzed students in ESP or English Education Study Program. According to the researcher, in the class, student enthusiasm for learning doesn't illustrate that 100% of students in English Education Study Programs are autonomous students, because based on the experience of the researcher in the class, that some students being active and other students being passive students. And then review study about autonomy learner. Before the researcher do the study, that she got some previous study like a descriptive analysis of learner autonomy in English language classroom in the second grade students of senior high school Asalapi Susukan by Horiana 2018. And then about an investigation of undergraduate students' beliefs about autonomous language learning by Oriwa Nakul and Wichade 2017. And the last is about autonomous learning levels of students majoring in EFL and the role of their teachers in developing autonomous learner by Abdurazak 2018. So here that some review study that guide the researcher to make research about analysis of the level of autonomy learners in learning English in the English Education Study Program. All the studies have been read by the researcher. That no similar research in Bengkulu about autonomous level of students. That's why the writer want to know exactly how many students are autonomous students in ESP and the level of autonomous learner in ESP. That's why the writer research about the autonomy level of ESP students in University of Bengkulu. Second, problem statement. The writers want to know whether the ESP students in autonomous level or not. In the problem statement, that the researcher um, want to research about autonomy level used to measure how autonomous learner based on some studies that discuss about autonomy of students, that no research that focus just to know about autonomy level of students. And then based on some research in University of Bengkulu, that the researcher read no research about autonomy level of ESP students. Because of that, the researcher want to research and focus this research in autonomy level of ESP students. Third research question. The research question in this study is, what is the autonomy level of ESP or English Education Study Program students in University of Bengkulu? And fourth, the objective of the problem. The objective of the problem in this study is to find out the level of autonomy learners in ESP or English Education Study Program in University of Bengkulu. And then limitation of the problem. The limitation of the problem in this research, that the researcher will limit the discussion just to get information about the level of autonomous learners in English Education Study Program. And after that, significance of the research. The significance of the research in this study divided into 2 points. First, lecturer, and second, future researcher. This research can be guide to the lecturer to know how much autonomy learners in English education. It can make lecturer can easy to know the best way to teach in English education study program. And then future researcher. The future researcher, in this research can be a guide, can use this research to be their guide in make similar research. And then the last in introduction is definition of key terms. The definition of key terms in this study is divided into 3 points. First, autonomy level, second level, and the last is ESP students. Autonomy level is about how autonomous learners in English education study program level. The level in this research mean there are 4 levels of autonomy in this study. First, dependent, barely autonomous, and highly autonomous. And the last ESP students. ESP students stands for English Education Study Program. So ESP students in this research means student in English Education Study Program. And then chapter 2, literature review. First, autonomy. Autonomy is a situation in which the learner is responsible for all the decisions concerned with his or her learning and the implementation of the decision. Based on Dickinson 1987. Based on the 1975, argues that autonomy is an activity of the mind and is present in making choice, deliberations, decision, reflection, judging, planning, and reasoning. Based on Cullen 1988, autonomy is an ideal with intrinsic value, with freedom as an important component. Sansa Sans Prasad 2009 links autonomy related needs, which specifically are the need for context, support, and community with others, leading to autonomous independence. Littlewood 1999 suggests that the relatedness idea is a suitable concept for East Asia in his study. Andrade and Bangkor 2009 focus on the relatedness between teachers and learners in in autonomy, because teacher and learner also um, have relatedness in autonomy. Students who are autonomy learner can um, the teachers can guide the students to be autonomous learners. Based on Cottrell 2000, state the essential characteristic of instructional program fostering autonomy is how they scaffold instruction functioning as learners' guidance, not their control of the decision-making process. Second in literature review is autonomous learner versus dependent learner. Hollick defined learner autonomy as the learner ability to take charge of his or her learning. Based on David Litter's terms, Learner autonomy is essentially a matter of the learner's psychological relation to the process and content of learning capacity for involvement, critical reflection, decision making, and independent action. Based on Little 1991, page 4. DAM 2090 defines autonomy in terms of learner's willingness and capacity to control or oversee her learning. Based on Hicks 1988, page 41, views learner autonomy as a process in which the learner works on learning tasks or activity and largely independent of the teachers who act as managers of the learning program and as research person. Based on age 1996 defines learner autonomy is not self-instruction or learning without a teacher, which doesn't mean that intervention or initiative on the part of the teacher is bad. While dependent students are characterized as students who lack a connection between their classes and the topics they're learning, based on Hammond 9 2015, page 14. Most importantly, this dependent learner how to tackle a new task. I see this among several of students based on Hammond 2015, page 14. Thus, in this research, the researcher will analyze about the autonomy level of students. It's from dependent until highly autonomous level. Dependent level in this study is dependent learners are learners who can become fearful and controlling in learning, so they need to have some strong strategies to avoid these feelings. And then barely autonomous in this study is students who are not so dependent on teachers, but who are also not very independent in learning, still need help from the teachers in several ways, but not only get knowledge only from the teachers. And then autonomous learner, I mean. Autonomous level is learner autonomy refers to principle that learners should take an increasing amount of responsibility for what they learn and how they learn it. And then the last highly autonomous is students who have a very high level of independence in their learning. These students have such good abilities to become independent learners. And then factor influencing autonomous learner. Factor influencing autonomous learner based on his 1988 said the four factor influence the autonomous learner. First, the role of learner themselves. So here that autonomous learners also influenced by the learner themselves. It means ourselves also can influence us to being autonomous learner when we are have our motivation to being autonomous learner, so we can being autonomous learner. And then the teacher also have the role to influence students to being autonomous learner, because the teacher can guide the students to being autonomous learners. And then the task, when the students have a lot of tasks that the students um, have their responsibility to do the task. That's why the task also influence the students to being autonomous learner. And then the last is in the environment. The environment also influence the students to being autonomous learners, because if the environment can support the students to being autonomous learners, so it can make students have their autonomous in their self. And then dependent and independent statement. Independent and dependent variables in terms of cause and effect. The independent variable is the variable that is the cause, while the dependent variable is the effect. Based on Hosima and Hogyu to 1997, a clause is a group of words containing subject and verb. Some clauses and stand alone as a sentence. This kind of clause is an independent clause. And then also said by Ozima and Hogyu that dependent clause is a clause or a group of words with a subject and verb that doesn't express a complete thought and cannot stand alone. It means that like in my instrument that I have a questionnaire that have two different statement that are those are dependent and independent. Dependent statement, it means that the students still need other others to being autonomous learner, and independent it means like um, the students being autonomous from their self, like the motivation from their self. The last in literature review is review study. In the study, I have some review study. First, about a paper conducted by Zhao 2015 entitled Study on the Meditation of English Teachers in the Students' Autonomous Learning. And then a thesis conducted by Rahmaman 2020 entitled Student Obstacle on Autonomous English Learning. And after that, a thesis conducted by Zulaiha and Harida 2017 entitled Autonomous Learning Strategy of the Successful Non-Traditional Students. And the last, a thesis conducted by Golami 2016, entitled Self-Assessment and Learner Autonomy. From this, um, from this review study conducted by Golami 2016, that the researcher take Golami instrument to being the this instrument to being the instrument in this study. And then chapter 3, methodology. First, research method. This research was conducted to know the level of autonomous learner in English education study program. This research used quantitative research according to the Aliaga and Gunderson 2002, page 81. Quantitative research is explaining phenomena by collecting numerical data that analyze using mathematically based methods, or in particular statistic. It means that um, in this study, the researcher used quantitative methods, um, which the study is analyze the data using mathematically based methods or use numerical data. And then second, population. According to Arikunto 2006, page 120, state total sampling is taking the same sample as the existing population. The population in this study that from semester 2, 116 students, from semester 4, 112 students, and from semesters 6, 64 students. So total of population in this study is 292. But um, the data in this study just use 196 students, because just 196 data that can used in the study. Just 196 students who answered this study. Data instrument. The researcher used questionnaire adopted from Golami 2016. The questionnaire includes 44 statements based on 9 dimensions that relate to language learning. The 9 dimensions in this study is about readiness for subdirection, independent work, language learning, importance class or teachers, role of teachers, explanation or supervision, language learning activities outside of the class, selecting content, intrinsic motivation, assessment or motivation, and the last, interest in other cultures. For data collection technique, in the study that the researcher used some steps to collect the data. First, prepare the questionnaire. Second, give the questionnaire in the Google Forms to samples. Third, analyze the data from the questionnaire. Fourth, the validity of the data with expert or lecturer. And the last, displaying the data from the questionnaire. Data analysis technique. The data analysis technique in this study that the researcher um, use bakery surrogate formula that use weighting scale, weight means score analysis with this formula as we can see on the screen. And the score dependent and independent questionnaire have different different score. If always true, independent point will get 4 score and dependent 1 score and others. The score interpreting the level in this study is independent level. The score 1 until 1.75, barely autonomous 1.76 until 1.5, autonomous level 1.51 until 3.25, and highly autonomous level 3.26 until 4. And then chapter 4, result and discussion. A result. The researcher in this study um, get some data that from 196 sample. Actually, the sample in this study is 292 sample. However, only 211 samples fill out the questionnaire in a week, but 8 students are students from semester 8 in EESP, then 7 students have multiple answer. So in this study, just 196 students that can being the data in this study. As we can see on the screen, that highly autonomous students, that no students in this level, and then 181 students in autonomous level, or same with 92.35% from 196 students, and 50 students in barely autonomous level, or same with um, 7.65% from 196 students. And then in this study, the researcher also saw the data in 9 dimensions. First dimension 1, readiness for subdirection. The lowest score in this dimension is 3.3, and the highest score is 3.53, and the average score in this dimension is 3.24, which is included in the autonomous level. And then dimension 2, independent work in language learner. The lowest score in this study is 2.95. The highest score in this study is 3.50, 45. The average score in this study is 3.16, which is included in the autonomous level. And the third, dimension 3, importance of the class or teachers. The lowest score in this study 1.97, the highest score in this study 3.15, and the average score in this study is 2.62, which is included in the autonomous level. And then dimension 4, role of the teacher, or about explanation or supervision. The lowest score in this dimension is 1.29. The highest score in this dimension is 1.95, and the average score is 1.62, which is included in the dependent level. Dimension 5, language learning activities outside the class. The lowest score in this dimension is 2.75. The highest score in this dimension is 3.4, and the average score is 3, which is included in the autonomous level. Dimension 6, about selecting content. The lowest score in this dimension is 2.94. The highest score in this dimension is 3.1, The average score is 2.97, which is included in the autonomous level. And in dimension 7, intrinsic motivation, the lowest score is 3.50, the highest score is 3.66, the average score is 3.56, which is included in the highly autonomous level. Dimension 8, assessment or motivation. In this dimension, the lowest score is 1.60 and the highest score is 3.6. The average score is 2.35, which is included in the barely autonomous level. And in dimension 9, interest in other cultures, the lowest score is 2.19. The highest score is 3.57 and the average score is 3, which is included in the autonomous level. The discussion, the current study focused on finding the autonomy levels in English education study program students. They are students from semester 2, 4, and 6. The researcher used total sampling in this research. It means that in this study, all of um, the all of population is a sample in the study. The researchers found that 92.35% of the students in English education study program to be an on the level autonomous learner. It means that students in ESP dominate at autonomous level. Based on the case 1987, as cited by Benson in 2001, page 413, learner is sorry, he defined that autonomy as the situation in which the learner is responsible for all of the decisions concerned with his learning and the implementation of those decisions. The theory above relates to the result of research conducted by researchers at ESP students, where the result is that some students are at an autonomous level. That means students have full responsibility in his learning and implementing their learning in the process. And also, ESP students have fulfilled their responsibility as a students to being active students. Based on Abdirazak 2018, in this research, autonomous learning levels of students majoring in EFL and the role of their teachers in developing autonomous learning. It means that like the students who are autonomous auto autonomous learning level in in students or especially in English foreign language learner as ESP students that as a foreign language learner they have they have they also still have their teachers role in developing their learning because in this study that had been researched by the researcher that the lowest score or the lowest level in the study that dependent level in dimension about the role of the teacher. It means um, the role of teachers in this in ESP still need a lot of the role of the teachers to guide the students um, to being autonomous learner. I mean, and then Chan 2001 also stated that autonomous learner are highly motivated in English learning. It means that the students who are autonomous learner have highly motivation in learning English. Based on Little 2001, there are two reasons of trying to make learners have autonomy in language learning. First, if learners are reflectively engaged with their learning, it will be more efficient and effective because it is more personal and focused. The students, I mean, can be more focused to their self because they have a motivation. And then, second, if learners are proactively commit to their learning. The problem of motivation is solved because they are have their commit to learning. And then conclusion and suggestion. In chapter 5, conclusion based on the result and discussion, it can be concluded the level of autonomy level of student in the EESP or English Education Study Program is at the autonomous learner level. There are 181 students or equivalent to 92.35% of the sample at the autonomy learner level. Then it is also clarified that there are 6 dimensions that are at the autonomous learner level, so that it shows that the level of autonomous learner in this ESP or English Education Study Program is at the autonomous learner level. And then suggestion. The suggestion given deal with inputs and recommendation for English education study program lecturer and also to the further study. English education study program lecturer um, in this study result inform the lecturer about autonomous level of students at ESP students. This study focus on finding on how autonomous students are in the English education study program in general, starting from semester 2, 4, and 6 based on the researcher experience about autonomy level of ESP that some ESP students some ESP students, I mean um that some ESP students have the lecture. Sorry, I mean that the in this research that the researcher have lecturer can know how much ESP, how much autonomy learner in ESP. So the lecturer can know how to guide autonomous learner um, with their ability to being great in their academic or achievement. And then um, in based on the result that found by the researcher in dimension 4 about the role of teacher or explanation supervision, that the students still being dependent level in this aspect. It means that the students still need a lot of explanation or supervision from the teacher or in learning. It it is also can be a guide to the lecturer in teaching, so the lecturer can make the students more being active in the class, not only um, the lecturer being active in the class, but the students also being active or students center in the learning process. And then further study, because the researcher analyzed autonomous level in ESP or English Education Study Program in general, the writer give analyze about the autonomy level in specific skill like listening, speaking, reading, or writing. So for further study that the researcher suggests that it is better if the future researcher analyze about the level, but not in general autonomous level, but in specific like in speaking, listening, reading, or in writing. Another suggestion is given to the future researcher who want to conduct the study about autonomy learner, that the future researcher can conduct the study on topic about um, on the topic about the 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 relation between autonomy level of ESP students and the achievement of the students. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.